on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back with another episode of the WTFlock Postgame Show, where we will be giving you instant analysis and breakdown of the Ravens' 34-6 defeat of the Los Angeles Chargers. Not what we've been used to lately. I think it was kind of coming off the sweat games, and then, we're expecting another sweat game against the 4-1 Chargers. And wow, the Ravens went out and took care of business, protected that home turf. If you're enjoying these instant breakdowns and analysis, click the like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We'd like to thank the sponsors of the WTFlock Postgame Show. It's our guys and gals over at Lee's Pint and Shell, located right in the heart of Baltimore. All their socials will be linked below. They're your go-to for game day with the game day specials. They got $4 32-ounce Bud Light drafts, $15 Michelob Ultra buckets, $12 Modelo and Corona buckets, and $20 White Claw buckets. Be sure to check them out on game day. And now over to my post-game co-host, Adam. What the flock's going on, my guy?
I'm Adam Bonacorsi, joined by Mark Andrews here. Cool. The hair trimmed down, the beard. You got the Andrews look going on. I love it. I love it.
$54 million contract. I can afford the best in the biz now.
Oh man, what a game! I'm getting shredded on Twitter, right? And I'm getting shredded because I predicted the Ravens would lose this one in a shootout. And realistically, all I can say to people is, if you really called this blowout this way, kudos to you. I'm going to start coming to you and trying to play some bets, because I don't think the majority of fans, taking off the purple glasses here, putting down the purple Kool-Aid, saw this one coming today. This is unreal win for the Ravens. Huge.
Yeah, I think overall, I thought our run game could kind of get back on track, just because they are the worst run defense in the league. But and I mean, certain things went our way. It's the 1 o'clock West Coast or East Coast trip for Los Angeles. It's the same as us going and playing on the West Coast at 1. That's tough. But hey, those are competitive advantages that every team deals with. You just got to work through them. But I 100% expected a shootout. I think if you didn't expect a shootout, you're crazy. They just had a shootout with the Browns. They're a high octane offense. They have Mike Williams going off this year. And we're going to get into it kind of in different sections, but let's go back to the 3 points that I always raise. What do you have to do to win a football game? 1, protect the ball. 2, protect your quarterback. 3, win in the trenches more generally. The Ravens did all 3 of those things outside of the interception.
It was a hell of an interception.
I feel like Lamar has one of these at least twice a year, where it's that linebacker zone drop and he just doesn't see him. It's kind of this, we've seen it before, and it's definitely like he knew as soon as he threw it. He just did not see the linebacker dropping. Other than that, Lamar looked pretty good. I thought, the offense looked completely different. And actually, let's jump right into the offense, because I think we have a lot of things to talk about. So let's get right into it. Run us down. What was going on in the offense? Give us kind of the high-level overview.
So I'll tell you right out of the gates, the one thing I did pick up on was last week, Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert both had 400-yard-plus games. This week, the two combined didn't hit 400 total yards. Who saw that one coming, right?
Exactly.
So, but for the Ravens, I mean, 27 first downs this week. They almost doubled up what the Chargers were able to do this week. 327 total yards. It wasn't anything sexy, but it was efficient. And then being able to pass the ball around to 7 different receivers and 5 different ball carriers in this game. No one player really controlled this for the Ravens, but they were really able to spread the ball out and do what they wanted to realistically. I mean, would you agree with that? I don't think there was anything in particular that they weren't able to do, and they had to kind of deviate and go focus on Mark Andrews or focus on Lamar's legs or whatever it may be.
I honestly think that, and I don't think it's getting talked about enough. I think we're talking about Lamar's passing yards. I think we're talking about them pushing the ball downfield. What we haven't talked about a lot is the maturity in Lamar Jackson's game, where he's spreading that ball around.
Absolutely.
I have never really felt that he's the kind of guy that stares down his receivers. Now, he'll get into periods of games where he'll go through drives where he's staring guys down. But to say he does it consistently over the course of, a game or multiple games has always been a false narrative that's been out there about Lamar Jackson. Going back to his college days, he's always processed well. He's always gone through his reads well. Obviously, he's had stretches where he doesn't do it consistently. That's going to happen to any quarterback, but it's always been something I find he does well. What the difference has been is that Lamar has guys that are just better at playing the pass catching role. Like the receivers are developing. We're getting returns on early draft picks like Rashod Bateman. We'll get into him more specifically. He was wide open on his targets. Like he's only going to get better. So Lamar's always been the kind of guy that's gone through his reads. The difference is that guys are getting open and they're executing their plays versus guys like heavy doses of Miles Boykin, Seth Roberts, guys that just, no disrespect to them, they're great accessory receivers. You'd love to have them come off the bench and make a play. You don't want them starting. And that's what I think we're seeing with Lamar Jackson's game with the ball being spread around.
Absolutely. And even the secondary, tertiary type guys that hitting Josh Oliver in this game and finding him a couple times, that drop was kind of, woof. But, it's nice to see, right? He's not locking in on a read. And I think that's what it comes down to for me, because that was another one of the Lamar narratives. Well, he just, read and run. And there are times when you watch him out there where it looks like he's doing everything he can not to run, He's sitting in that pocket as long as he can, looking for the play to make downfield, and he doesn't feel like he needs to take off. And look, I still think that's the next step to his game is I think he went from, quick reads and running when he had to now he's staying in the pocket almost a little bit too long on some of these plays. And the next step for him is going to be better recognition of when it is time to take off with the ball, to have that awareness of the pocket collapsing around you. And, we talked about the sack that Bosa got today, and that was that interior pressure. If maybe that's a bad example because I don't really think it was pretty much closing in around him. But understanding, the drive I got here is.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Yeah. It's that. I mean, we saw it a couple times. I think it was against Detroit where he had on third down. I think he had 2 scramble attempts on the third and fourth attempt out of the 10 third down attempts, and the Lions had a guy playing low gear on the defensive line that just kind of played a contained pursuit role on him. And then there were a couple of passes that were incomplete because no one was open, and Lamar probably could have taken off. And it's just going to be about everything finally clicking. I think a big thing that's going to be a difference maker for him taking that step is getting consistent protection too. Today was a great example. Let's talk about the offensive line. Run blocking. I'll give a huge shout out to Spencer Schultz at Ravens for Dummies. He made a great point, and I completely agree with what I saw on film. I wasn't able to put a film room out last week, but I don't think that this offensive line in the run game has been getting consistently blown up all over the place. It's been on a lot of plays consistently, one guy losing their one-on-one and that guy making a play on the ball. And it does feel like they were just kind of one block away from springing some of these runs, and they got those blocks today. Josh Oliver made a block today. He also missed quite a few. That's going to be a whole other thing. But, he made that block on the seal block. Ricard also made a block on Freeman's. I think he went for 21 or something like that. It was a run to the right. And Murray hitting some of those inside runs. Jeff Zrebic was on the show last week, and he said it pretty clearly. Give him 5 yards, and he's going to get you 5 yards because he makes the right read most of the time. But he's not going to make a lot of guys miss. So, give him some blocks, get their defensive line moving, and he's going to get you first downs. And that's what we saw today until the injury happened. Murray was running pretty hard downhill. He was decisive, but he was getting those blocks from the offensive line, and they were moving guys. And it like I said, it hasn't been the O-line getting blown up all the time. It's been, McCarty missing a block and then Bozeman missing a block. And it's just all those kind of can't compound into dysfunction. So much better showing from the offensive line. What'd you think? What'd you see from them?
No, I agree. And for me, it was really in the running game. That's what I was really focused on there. And it was watching these lead blocks too, continuing to run downhill, right? They're not getting stood up at their line. They're not getting driven backwards. They're continuing to push downhill for these guys. I watched a few times with both Murray and Freeman where they were able to put a hand out and kind of guide themselves where they needed to be at in the backfield. It's the patience that they've had, but not the patience they've been afforded prior to this game, relatively speaking. They had the ability to see the lane a little better. And also, worth noting, repetition matters, right? And we've been saying this for weeks. These guys will continue to get more comfortable in the backfield. And it was kind of a perfect storm, right? They have more time this week to get their reps in there, to understand this offense, to learn to play behind this line. And then the line just had a great game overall. Yeah. How long was Bozeman even out in this game?
He only missed a couple snaps, and then he was back in on the next drive. And I seriously think, I know they were talking about it being a back injury. I really think it was the wind knocked out of him. If he was gingerly on his back, he wouldn't. He was literally walking around the. He looked like me before a game at like noon before a 1 o'clock game, or I'm just walking around the house because I can't sit. He was like, get me back in this. And so he was ready to go. And it seriously looked like, because Murray ran right into the back of him, almost 2 downhill running for Murray. But I seriously think he got the wind knocked out of him. And then he got off to the sideline. I saw him kind of bend down a few times, but I don't know. He's going to be fine.
Well, what did you think about Villanueva today? Because the few times I tried to focus on him, I don't have that ability to watch 6 things at once. I try. It's so hard not to follow the ball, but the few times I tried to focus on Villanueva, actually, really, him and Macari both tackles look pretty damn good today. Considering got Bosa out there, and again, that one pressure, Macari, Bosa best.
Yeah, that wasn't a pressure. I'm not coming off this one. This is one of these things that drives me crazy. If I'm an offensive, and this is me coaching offensive line and being an offensive line sided guy, I'm always going to look for how he parked himself. He got pushed back a bit, but he was not in Lamar Jackson's kitchen. The pressure came because, and this is why when you're breaking down offensive line play, you need to factor in the quarterback set point, because if your quarterback takes an 11-step drop and he's out of the back of the pocket, and then a guy runs out of the back of the pocket, well, the offensive tackle's back is to the quarterback. He knows where your drop is supposed to be, and that's always dictated by how many set steps he'll take to get back. So Macari set, and Lamar was perfectly in the pocket. He was fine, but Lamar had to step back because of inside pressure, and Bosa just literally ran out the back of the pocket. But how can you blame Macari on that? It's just one of these things where I see commentators talk, and you guys don't know anything about the offensive line. Like, just stop talking. Everyone just wants to be quick to blame a guy, and I get it. It was the guy that Macari was blocking made a sack. How is it not his fault? Well, when you get into it and you understand what he's trying to do, you'll understand how that happened. Anyway, I won't drone on about it. Overall, how did Macari and AV look? I think they looked really good in the run game. I was shocked. AV has been springing runs this year. He's missed a few, but what I've noticed is how he finishes, and especially on some of those guard tackle pulls where he's the second guy to pull around. He's springing runs, and it's the opposite, where I think he's struggling a bit in pass protection, but he's playing really well in the run game, and that's kind of the opposite of what we heard about him. So I think he's getting more comfortable at the left side. I think he's still going to lose pass snaps. He's still going to lose to some of the best rushers. It's going to suck when Myles Garrett comes here. It's part of the game, but it's up to Roman to try and put him in a position to succeed. But overall, I think he's playing well. I think he's playing much more consistent. He's going to have bad games here and there. You just know it. And as for Macari, I mean, he had a few where, Joey Bosa beat him. I mean, Joey Bosa beats Ronnie Stanley and Orlando Brown Jr. So he beats the best of them because he's one of the best edge rushers. It's just part of the game. Overall, I think they're stabilizing this line. Bozeman gave up a few losses today on the inside, but overall, they all just executed better. And like I've said so many times in this show, it's all about those one-on-ones and just inconsistently one guy losing. I really don't see them getting constantly blown up where it's, carnage coming and all this crazy 4-man rush and everyone's losing. It's just kind of little itty bitty execution issues, and it's finally starting to get a little bit better. So like you said, get consistent, get guys playing together more. But let's get into the pass catchers. Mark Andrews had another good game coming off a beast of a performance on Monday Night Football. But what'd you think of Rashod Bateman? Obviously, he's the huge storyline. What'd you think?
So here's the thing for me. I did not expect this out of Bateman. And it's fun to say for a guy who only had 4 catches for 29 yards. And on 6 targets, one was obviously that drop that turned into a second Lamar Jackson interception, which, again, credit to the defense. That was a beautiful pick and awareness to get that ball in the fingertips. But I didn't expect it. So what I didn't expect was that we would see Prochet relegated to less looks in this game, and Bateman would step into that hole. That was it for me, right? I figured the Ravens would continue to give Prochet looks because he was making the most out of those opportunities in recent weeks. But Bateman stepped right in, and he's just such a clean route runner. And we've said this all right in camp prior to his injury. You heard it daily. And we, I'm sitting there watching this guy on the daily, and that's what you see. He doesn't look – he's very sudden, right? And you can see it out there in the field. And it looks like everything we saw in camp is translating over. And everything we saw, back in college is translating over so far. That drop sucked. Let's just call it what it is. And we'll get into the Hollywood Brown touchdown drop too. But the drop sucked. It hit him right in the numbers. He had his head upfield. I know he had two defenders kind of bracketing them there. And I'm sure he was hearing footsteps on that thing. And well, let's be patient with him. He'll get his head into that, and he'll get that figured out. I'm sure the coaches went and talked to him on the sidelines, but I won't be able to talk enough about his route running. He's such a clean route runner out there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, rookie making rookie mistake, shocker. That's kind of the beauty of having guys around him that have been playing well. Andrew's playing well. Hollywood playing around well outside of the drop. Sammy Watkins, when he comes back, he's been playing well. Duvernay playing. You know what I mean? Like I find that Rashod Bateman is in such a better position to have success than some of the first rounders or, third rounders, whatever, of the past. But before we get into more, Adam, let me ask you, how are you celebrating this huge win over the Bolts today?
So always bourbon, right? You celebrate your wins with bourbon around here. And if you're a bourbon fan as well, I'll invite you to join me and the folks at Lee's Pint and Shell on Tuesday, October 26th. That's like 9 days from now. From 7 to 10, we're going to go ahead and sip on some Blanton's Eagle Rye 10-year and some Buffalo Trace at Lee's Whiskey Event. Not to be confused with Wee's Whiskey Event, which slurs. So you'll get both featured cocktails, the Eagle Rye and the Buffalo Trace. You'll get 3 1-ounce pour flights for each. And then you're going to get some featured finger foods and some cool giveaways as well while you're there. You can go online and get your tickets at leespintandshell.com. Or Cole, I know you always drop these down here in the pod to make sure that people can get the information there as well. So let's go ahead and, cheers to the Ravens and another victory when, hopefully a second one before we get to that event here when we have the Bengals next week.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And now that, huge announcements, breaking news, the U.S.-Canadian border is opening. And so Cole may be able to get down there. So if we're going to have some fun things set up to look forward to. I'll finally get to meet Adam, who I've been talking to pretty much daily for the last 4 years. Finally meet him in person. It's going to be one of those internet catfish things. I can already see it coming, but love it. I love it. And so let's round out.
Like, I'm really Adam.
Everyone's going to see him and be like, yeah, this Canadian kid really is 5'8" and lives in his mom's basement. Love to see it.
Wearing heels?
All right, so let's Let's finish out the offense here. Hollywood Brown. What do we think? Are we? Some people got off the Hollywood Brown train as quick as they got on it after some dynamite. What do you think?
I'm not worried about. So here's the thing. Hollywood on the day, 4 catches on 5 targets for 35 yards. He caught every ball thrown to him except that one drop for a touchdown. And here's what I'm saying. So did it hit him in the hands? Yes. By definition, you'll call it a drop. Was it on the fingertips? To me, that was a fingertip ball. And if you look at Lamar Jackson after that play was done, he's beating himself upside the helmet. He's mad at himself, I think, more than he's mad at Hollywood for that, because he had all the space in the world to hit him a little closer in proximity than, throwing to your little 5 foot something, little wide, no offense, throwing to your little wide out there. So he knows he could have thrown a better ball. So I'm not blaming Lamar. I'm not blaming Hollywood. That was a football play. It happens, right? The quarterback's off the hair. The receiver has it off the fingertips. Those plays happen to every player out there at one point in time or another. I don't care if it's Tyreek Hill or Kelsey out there, right? It's going to happen to those guys too. So ultimately, I'm not beating him up. If he catches that one ball, he's 5 for 5 with 80 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Or 70 yards and a touchdown. That's the difference in that game right there.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Because you go back to the Detroit game, and now it's kind of like, there's only so many times we can say, oh, if he catches that, then it's, such and such. And I get it, but it's just, you got to look at some of, like, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater after so much positive. I mean, he was massive for the Ravens last week in a comeback win. He caught 2 touchdowns. He's been playing well this year outside of the Detroit game, which was bad, probably the worst game of his career. So, throw that one out, and a drop. And that's it, right? Like, that's kind of the end of the list. It's a bad game and a drop today. Other than that, he's been dynamite. So, I mean, have a sip of bourbon. Everyone relax. It's going to be all right.
Be happy I haven't had more sips of bourbon because we'd be having a Bartholomew Scott rant right now because I could already see he's going to jump all over him again.
And he will. And I mean, he's going to – I don't want to drone on about the Bart Scott thing, but Bart Scott is like if you want to sit there and say Hollywood Brown's not number one, that's fine. I get it. Say Hollywood Brown's not number one on most playoff teams. I agree with you. That's fine. He's not there yet. And maybe he gets there. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But to say he's a number 3 on most teams in the NFL, it's not true. I can list like people being like, he wouldn't start on the 2 wide receiver set over on the Browns. I'm like, in what world? Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't done anything since 2016. Like, what are you all talking about? Like, it's just insane to me. And so it doesn't mean Odell Beckham Jr. is not a great wide receiver. He is, but he barely everything that we complain about Hollywood having drops and bad games and disappearing. That's what he does. Anyway, so it's just nonsense. And we have a lot to talk about on the defense. So before we get into there, we have some important updates going on at Lee's Pint and Shell. In conjunction with the What the Flock Postgame Show, we're taking this partnership to the next level. So, Adam, tell our folks what they can look forward to coming.
All right, so we've been trying to work some details out here, and there's still a few more to iron out. So we're going to give you just a little taste right now, and then we'll grow into more. And you have to stay tuned for updates on Lee's Pint and Shell social accounts, as well as keeping up with your guys here at What the Flock. But we're going to be doing a joint force situation here on a DraftKings league play. And we're going to have weekly prizes for those folks in attendance at Lee's. And we're going to do something for, most points throughout the whole season if you participate in this. And, a big score at the end of the season, if you will, for that winner with the most points. And then, outside of that, we're also going to be doing a live event here sometime early next month at Lee's Pint and Shell. We've been talking to the team over there, something set up on the second floor, get us a little microphone action, see some of these guys in person, right? And we're going to do a charity raffle situation there too as well. One of the followers of What the Flock, big Ravens fan, has donated a pair of tickets to the Thursday Night Football game mid-November for the Ravens and Dolphins. They're great seats in the lower section on the Ravens side of the field, to be specific. So we're going to go ahead and get something going here and give back to charity because we here at What the Flock are all about the charity. And we'll have that in conjunction with the live event here. So look forward to it. Again, more details to come as we iron out these last few things here, and we look forward to it. And we'll give you more information next week on What the Flock.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the partnership with Lee's and to the gentleman donating. And a lot of this comes from, you guys are the ones watching the channel, right? You guys are tuning in every week to come watch us talk about the post game and tuning into other parts of the Two Guys Watching Football channel. So we're just appreciative of everyone out there, and we wanted to kind of give back while at the same time doing something great for a great cause. So I'm excited.
I am too, and I'm just going to make one point. By the end of the season, my goal, Cole, is to grow this thing so much that we convince Pint to bring in a Canadian burger to their menu, and it's just going to have Canadian bacon on the top of their cheeseburger. Like that is the dream, right? The What the Flock Canadian burger. I want that on the menu by the end of season. In conjunction with Mark Andrews.
We need an ad where Mark Andrews is there eating the Canadian burger, and no one knows who it is.
Just right? Just you and Mark Andrews eating the Canadian burger side by side, and he's like, "Oh yeah."
And because he's getting paid $54 million, he's paying for it. I love it. Okay, let's get right into the defense. Let's start in the trenches and work our way out. So let's start with the defensive line. Wow, what a difference, because I don't think we talked about it enough last week against the Colts. They got their butts kicked outside of Calais Campbell, who I thought had a fantastic game against the Colts. Yeah. They were just consistently getting blown off the ball by a not very good offensive line. And today, what a difference. Eckler had no room in the backfield. I think his first carry of the game was for -3. Houston was making plays back there. Williams was back there being disruptive. Campbell's back there making plays. Matabike actually made a few plays too. He was played a lot more consistent. I just found that, this is simplistic, but they just won, right? And, the pass rush could have been a little bit better, I think. But overall, they consistently won. They took care of business in the trenches, and it really hurt the Chargers getting going. They didn't have, they weren't able to fall back on their run game. Eckler, I think, barely touched the ball. How many carries did he have?
Oh, God, hold on. You got to let me check this one. I'll tell you who was not the leading rusher. He had 6 carries in this game. Six carries.
Josh Kelly had 4. So, they ran for a total of 26 yards.
And because Justin Herbert was their leading rusher with 12 yards.
So, and it's not just that they only ran the ball 12 times, but
that's how one-dimensional they became.
Yeah.
The Ravens' defensive line and what they were able to do. And I'll tell you what, Herbert wasn't able to climb in that pocket at all. The pressure was coming quick. And to the pass rush note, it was interesting to me because I felt like Herbert was willing to throw it away quickly instead of taking that sack. I think the Ravens had 2 sacks in the day, and one was Justin Houston at the end of the game in that final drive for the Chargers. So
half sack away from hitting 100.
That's right. That's right.
Next week, Joe Burrow, we're coming for you, baby.
So it was interesting to me, right? Because I feel like as quick as he was ready, as Herbert was getting rid of that ball, if he held it for a half second more, that could have been 4 or 5 sacks in that game for the team easily. They were there. They were there consistently. Again, stuffed the run, completely shut it down in this game. 26 rushing yards, and 12 of them were from a quarterback. Yeah. That's wild.
And one was a 10-yard scramble. I remember it. He slid right at the line, right at the first down marker.
Yep, absolutely.
So, the D-line did their work. And, let's kick it back out inside linebackers. One thing I'm going to say, and I'm not trying to be dramatic, this always bugs me, right? Because, people celebrating or talking about, oh, thank God Patrick Queen got hurt because we got to see what Bynes looked. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. there's nothing cool about celebrating an injury. Even when Bowler got hurt and
first
the Ravens fans cheered. I'm not trying. It's not cool. And stuff like that on social media, I don't care. It's tough to read. Regardless of how you feel about a person, this is their livelihood. Knock that off. So that out of the way. We did get to see Josh Bynes, and what I thought we got to see was a player that plays slower than Patrick Queen, but a player that processes faster. And maybe processes faster isn't the right word, but his play speed is more in tune with his processing. So what I mean is when he's reading a play, it's as he starts to make his movement, he continues to read, and he's not just sprinting there. He's kind of, he's more pacing his run into a tackle situation. I don't think we've talked about it that much, but a number of these Patrick Queen misses, he's over pursuing. If it's a screen pass, it's not that, he just gets out there and whiffs on the tackle. It's that he kind of overruns it, and then he can't backtrack against his own momentum. So when I talk about his processing, I actually think Patrick Queen has processed well this year, but then he almost sprints too fast to the ball, as weird as that sounds. And I thought with Bynes, you kind of saw that veteran approach to it, the things you'd see out of LJ Ford. So I thought Bynes made a huge difference. He looked a lot more clean. Malik Harrison still struggled. He was the receiving end of the touchdown. He just got outran. He can't do it in the pass game right now. He's kind of in a similar spot where the game's just moving too fast for him. And this might be a 2019 situation where we need to look at some veteran linebackers to kind of come in here and shore things up. Maybe it's Bynes. Maybe it's someone else that they can bring in off the streets. One of the few positions that they're going to be able to afford under the salary cap where a veteran can come in and make a difference is probably inside linebacker, just because it is a cheaper position. So what did you think about the inside linebackers?
So again, and Queen did come back in the game, so that's worth noting as well, right?
Yes.
Queen's injury is not long-term, obviously, right back in. You'll probably see him
hitting the balls. He's going to be all right.
And he really tackle it towards the end of the game in that final Chargers drive. So, we talk about you mentioned the processing. I think the other aspect of that too is and I don't want to just kind of kick it over to veteran savvy, but it's experience, right? And Queen is still a young kid, and he's in his second year here, and he's still learning. And I don't know. I don't want to give excuses through and through for his play. There are certain things that it looks like he's regressed from last year. I would almost say that, again, he's processing better than last year, but it's almost like he's got one read, right? He sees this play develop, and his mindset is, all right, see ball, get ball. But if something else happens beyond that moment, it's not there. Then that's the overcommit, right? I'm going from point A to point B, and he stopped thinking about anything that happens after that moment, and he's just heading beeline to point B. That's it. So, again, we talked about Lamar earlier, and it's like, what's the next step in his game? Queen's going to have a next step in his game. All these young kids are going to have a next step in their game. They're not finished, products by any means. And Queen, again, you go back to the age and the inexperience and switching positions and, a lot of that kind of stuff over the course of time leading up to his pro career. I feel like there is not a grace period that he was granted either. And a veteran would help, right? A veteran coming in would not mean that Queen's done.
And just remember, that's supposed to be LJ Fort. Like that's
exactly.
They brought him back to be that veteran stabilizing force if the young kid struggled. And obviously, we lost Fort due to the injury. And so maybe Bynes is the new Fort. I don't know, but they need to consider that as an option to go out there and look at someone else.
And I think it's the only option, right? Yeah. You're not going to go out and find, and the tackles are fine right now, but you're not going to go out and find a cheap tackle. You're not going to go out and find secondary help for cheap. I think you can go out and find, and again, the name I keep hearing pop up is Quan Alexander as an option. Maybe. I'm sure they'll find some guys out there or stumble across a solid, and that's what we need. We don't need a stud. We need a solid veteran presence in the middle of the field.
And it could be Bynes. Like, let's just kind of keep that in mind because I thought he played well today and he was able to step in. So maybe when we see Queen, like maybe they come out and they start Queen Harrison against the Bengals, and which I think Harrison's going to be a good value add against the Bengals because they're going to run that zone scheme, and I think that's where Harrison does excel in run defense. So I would actually like to see him in there. But if one of them is struggling, okay, let's get Bynes in there quicker this time, and that's where I think the adjustment can happen.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe that is the answer, right? I'm sure that Eric DaCosta has his ear to the ground to see what kind of noise is going on out there, who's available. But I'm sure that, coaching staff's probably also in Eric's ear saying, listen, if they really do genuinely believe Bynes is the answer, they're probably telling him, don't go further into cap hell. Don't give away one of our draft picks next year. Don't do any of these things. Just stick with what we have. We're comfortable with this. If there's another reason that we absolutely need to, then go do it. But if you have more pressing needs or no needs at all and we're good with this, let's just go. So it'll be interesting to see. I know the deadline's approaching pretty quickly here, so if they're going to make a move, it'll be soon. But, we may see an increase in Bynes next week, and that may be a good litmus to see how comfortable the team really is.
Yeah, well said. And, the fourth down shocked me. They were 1 for 4 on fourth down. One of which came on. It was nuts. I'm actually really excited. I think I'm going to try and get out. I want to get one of these guys that loves the analytics and the decision-making analysis and kind of talk it through with them because – I just got off the phone before you and I recorded with one of my buddies who's a Chargers fan, and it was a guy that I played high school football with, and I was like, so what did you think of the fourth downs? And he's like, he said it the way I would have looked at it, and it's, the decision-making is the decision-making. You get these models based on win percentage, and I get it. Like, I genuinely get it, but there's no substitution for how your team is currently executing. And that's how I always felt about the decision-making in the 2019 Titans loss in the playoffs. It wasn't that they were the wrong decision based on the mathematical outcomes. It's that when your team's not executing right then, probably not the best time to go into a high leverage situation on fourth down. So that's how I felt about it. But what I couldn't believe is that they went for on fourth down. And my guy, Dan Reese, made this point, who I know loves the analytical models. And he's actually who I want to get on to talk about it. But he said, loved the decision, hated the play call. And I think he's referring to them targeting Marlon Humphrey. And I think this is a good time to transition to the secondary. I thought they balled out. What'd you think of Humphrey and Averett specifically? Because they've been kind of under fire after the Colts game.
They really have. I saw Humphrey give up one pretty chunky play, and it looked like it was in the slot, and it was just a guy leaking out. And I cannot remember who it was right now. But that was really it. And Averett, we talked about, kind of was ebb and flow, right? It was definitely markedly better than last week's game. But for Averett, it was, give up 2 balls for first downs and then have a huge pass breakup and draw an offensive pass interference when what could have easily been a pick for him. So he was very up and down. I'd say more up than down, though. Clearly, I mean, Herbert was barely, what was he? I don't even remember the numbers anymore right now. 22 for 39, but didn't even hit 200 yards in the game. He targeted Averett early and often, though, for sure. But I think once it proved to be less than effective, they kind of steered through.
I want to emphasize this, and I might even clip this and post it on Twitter. Averett answered. He answered a brutal game.
Yep.
The difference last week, and you and I talked about this, is they didn't have depth to get him off the field and give him a couple of series to kind of get his head under control. Even Kevin Seymour couldn't play Seymour couldn't play last week because of an injury suffered in practice. He's still a young kid. He's still developing. He's not ready for it to be a starter. He's being pushed into a starter's role. So, I mean, I guess he is ready to be a starter. But that was your perfect example of a kid that's struggling and he needs to be able to get taken out of the game, and they just don't have the depth to do it. So I thought he answered. He's not going to play perfect, but he's playing damn good overall outside of one game. Reminds me a lot of Hollywood Brown. Yes, he's got that one game you can look to and say, oh, he's crap, he's inconsistent. But in the grand scheme of things, playing really well. The other guy that I thought made a huge difference was the Joker, Deshaun Elliott. Had the early sack, had the interception. Is this kid playing into a massive contract extension or what?
I mean, he's leaning that way, isn't he? He's there, right?
How do you let him
around
go?
And the defense makes a play and he's there. It's wild to watch his development. And again, we can kind of go back to the amount of people that gave up on players. His injuries early on, right? He's injury prone. He can't stay on the field. And now you're getting to see what he is. I think he's been fantastic out there. And to that note, another injury-prone player that people gave up on. That was a lot of P's there. Tavon Young, right? What can you say? He's been playing great. I'll tell you my favorite thing about him, too, this season is when they bring him on the blitz. And he didn't effectively land a sack this week, but his pressure is being noticed now. And the speed that he comes, into that backfield, he's not a big guy. But you have to account for speed as much as you do size in those type of situations. And he was burning around the outside at the tackle and able to get around close to Herbert. It's the secondary, kind of like the offensive line, right? We're starting to see some gelling and these guys come together. And a lot of that secondary has to do with trust. And you're starting to see that trust develop between the safeties and the corners right now. And it's a great thing to see. It really is.
And I just wanted to say, going into the Bengals game, I think it's critical because they have 3 wide receivers, all who can make you pay. Boyd is getting less work right now just because, Higgins and Chase are there. But, it's going to be a tough game, and they got to come out and get it done against a lot. They're going to see a lot of 11 personnel. CJ Uzoma's making a ton of plays. It's going to be a big test for this pass defense next week because I think they're going to try to run the ball. I feel like our defensive line is going to be able to own that line of scrimmage and stop that scheme again. It's going to be a similar approach to what we've had against, teams like the Titans, where they're going to come out, try and run zone, and then you're going to force them to drop back. And I think it's going to be a great test for them. So I agree, though. They're gelling. They're gelling just like the O-line is. They're playing beat up. They have, they're obviously missing a huge piece in Peters. And they've had other injuries around there. So I think they're finally starting to put it together. Jimmy Smith's getting healthier. Someone on my Twitter, Theo Barry, that's who it was. Theo Barry made the point. He just said the defense is getting healthier, and that's the difference. And I think that's a nice way of summarizing it. We're still not going to get back some of the IR guys, and that sucks. It's really going to cap what I think this defense's ceiling could be. But get healthy, get the chemistry down, and, get it going. And I think this was a huge first step. And, next step is the Bengals. So let's close on that. Do you have any last closing thoughts for our friends?
No, I mean, hell of a game. You have to be elated about this development. And it was nice to see, last week the offense won the game. This week, both sides of the ball did what they needed to do. And that's what we've been waiting for, is the defense to really step up. And we saw it against Denver, but this is this is a formidable offense here. And the defense really stepped up and played hell of a game this week. So I'm thrilled, and equally as thrilled to get these events going at Lee's and start interacting with you guys more. Talk to us about the fantasy league stuff that we're going to do, and talk to us about this live event, and maybe do some Q&A or something out there. So looking forward to everything.
Love it. And like I said earlier in the show, thank you guys so much for the support on the channel. That's all we have for you today. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.